In the corporate world, the most dangerous person isn't the one who shouts the loudest. It's the one who thinks they're the smartest person in the room, but doesn't bother to check who's actually sitting in it. My name is Samantha Ford, and I'm the head of systems optimization at Veltrix Global, a high-tech company headquartered in Austin, Texas. After 8 years of dedication, I not only operate the entire internal payroll system, I literally own it. But my new boss didn't know that. Until he tried to cut my salary by 40% because I supposedly no longer aligned with the company's new vision. I still remember the day I joined Veltrix. It was a sweltering Texas summer day in 2016, and I was fresh out of my master's program in information systems management. Veltrix wasn't the tech giant it is today. Back then, it was a promising mid-sized company with about 200 employees and ambitious plans to revolutionize supply chain management software. What drew me to Veltrix wasn't just the competitive salary or the casual workplace culture that tech companies are known for. It was the promise that I could build something from scratch. The CIO at the time, Richard Hernandez, had practically begged me to join after seeing my thesis project on automating complex business processes. "We need someone who thinks differently," Richard had said during my final interview. "Someone who can look at our internal systems and rebuild them to scale with us." I was sold, and for the first 5 years, Veltrix was everything I'd hoped for. I quickly became known as the quiet problem solver, the one who could untangle any technical mess without making a fuss. I redesigned their network infrastructure, implemented a new customer database that cut query times by 60%, and built automated reporting tools that saved the executive team countless hours each month. But my crown jewel was the payroll system. When I arrived, Veltrix was using an outdated third-party solution that cost a fortune and constantly broke down. After a particularly disastrous month where half the sales team received no commissions and the system crashed for a week, Richard gave me the green light to build something better. For 8 months, I worked nights and weekends to create PayStream, a custom payroll solution that could handle Veltrix's complex compensation structures while integrating seamlessly with our other systems. It wasn't just a payroll processor, it was a comprehensive employee management platform that tracked everything from performance metrics to benefit allocations. By 2019, PayStream was running flawlessly, saving Veltrix over $300 annually in licensing fees from the previous system. I had built it on my own time, with my own resources. Though Veltrix covered the server costs and paid me a substantial bonus that year, what few people knew was that I had retained ownership of the source code, a detail buried in paragraph 17 of the contract I drafted with help from my college roommate who had gone into corporate law. Then came 2021. The pandemic had initially boosted Veltrix's business as companies scrambled to digitize their supply chains, but by early 2021, we were feeling the pinch of the broader economic slowdown. My father passed away that February after a short battle with pancreatic cancer, leaving me his modest savings and the family home in East Austin. While I was still processing my grief, Richard called me into his office. The company was considering outsourcing the payroll system to cut costs. They'd been approached by a larger provider who was offering a substantial discount. "I know it's your baby, Sam," Richard said, his face lined with genuine regret. "But the board is pushing hard for cost-cutting measures, and your system, while brilliant, is expensive to maintain in-house." I nodded silently, but my mind was racing. That night, I couldn't sleep. The thought of my creation being shelved for some clunky corporate alternative was unbearable. More than that, I knew Veltrix would suffer. No off-the-shelf solution could handle our specific needs the way PayStream did. By dawn, I had a plan. I would create a company to acquire PayStream from me personally, and then lease it back to Veltrix at a rate competitive with the alternative they were considering. Richard was skeptical but ultimately supportive when I presented the idea. After all, it would save face with the board while keeping the superior system. And so, Stone River Solutions was born, named after the street my father had lived on for 30 years. Using my inheritance, I registered the company in Delaware. transferred the Paystream intellectual property to it, and worked with Richard to draft a new 3-year contract between Stone River and Veltrix. The arrangement was approved by the board, who were pleased with the apparent cost savings. Only Richard and 2 members of the legal team knew I was behind Stone River. To everyone else, I was simply the technical liaison between Veltrix and our new vendor. The contract included some protective clauses that Richard thought excessive at the time, but agreed to out of friendship, a substantial early termination fee, and a requirement that all data be handed over within 7 days if the contract was terminated. You won't need those. Richard had laughed. This system is the backbone of our operations now. No one in their right mind would rip it out. For the next 3 years, everything ran smoothly. Veltrix continued to grow, expanding to over 500 employees and opening satellite offices in Chicago and Toronto. Paystream scaled effortlessly, and I regularly added features based on feedback from HR and finance. Stone River provided me with a comfortable additional income stream that I primarily reinvested in improving the system. Then Richard announced his retirement. After 15 years at the helm of Veltrix's technology department, he was moving to Portugal with his wife. I was devastated but understood his decision. What I didn't anticipate was how quickly things would change under new leadership. The board, looking to take Veltrix to the next level, hired Matthew Lane as the new chief operating officer. At 38, Matthew was young for the role, but came with an impressive resume in management consulting, specializing in corporate restructuring. His LinkedIn profile boasted about his ability to identify inefficiencies and streamline operations for maximum profitability. From the moment he stepped into our headquarters, dressed in a tailored suit that seemed out of place in our casual tech environment, I had a feeling that Matthew and I would not see eye to eye. His first company-wide meeting confirmed my suspicions. Veltrix has built an impressive foundation, Matthew said, pacing across the stage with the confidence of someone who believed every word they uttered was profound. But to compete at the highest levels, we need to embrace a philosophy of maximum efficiency with minimum overhead. Some changes will be difficult, but I assure you, they're necessary for our collective success. The changes began within weeks. First came the announcement that our generous health insurance plan was being replaced with a high-deductible alternative. Then the free lunch program was scaled back to twice a week instead of daily. Small things, but they impacted morale. Next came the personnel changes. 4 senior developers with salaries on the higher end of the scale were let go, replaced by junior programmers at half the cost. 2 long-standing department heads were reassigned to non-managerial roles, effectively demotions. Each change was accompanied by corporate speak about aligning resources and optimization strategies. I kept my head down, focusing on my work and hoping my department's clear value would protect us. Stone River's contract with Veltrix wasn't up for renewal for another 6 months, and I was already planning improvements to propose with the new contract. Then came the email that would change everything. Meeting request, departmental restructuring. Discussion, confidential. When I entered Matthew's office that Friday afternoon, he was reviewing something on his tablet, not bothering to look up as I took a seat across from his imposing glass desk. The office, formerly Richard's warm, book-filled space with comfortable chairs and family photos, had been transformed into a minimalist showcase of chrome and white surfaces. Samantha, Matthew finally acknowledged me, placing his tablet face down. Thank you for coming. I'll get straight to the point. I've been reviewing all departmental structures and expenditures, and I have concerns about systems optimization. What concerns? I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the knot forming in my stomach. Frankly, I'm not seeing clear value generation. Your team of 4 costs the company over $500,000 annually in salaries alone. Yet your output metrics are nebulous at best. I started to explain the critical infrastructure my team maintained, the constant improvements we implemented, the problems we prevented before they could impact operations. Matthew held up a hand to stop me. I understand you've been with the company a long time, and I respect the institutional knowledge you bring. But Veltrix is evolving, and we need to align all roles with our new direction. He slid a document across the desk. It was a revised job description, my job description, with a new title: Legacy Systems Support Specialist. This represents a more accurate scope for what we need going forward. Matthew continued. The compensation adjustment reflects the reduced responsibilities and reporting structure. I scanned the page, my blood running cold when I reached the salary figure, a 40% reduction from my current compensation. I would also be reporting to Evan Parker, a recent hire of Matthew's who knew nothing about our systems. You're demoting me and slashing my pay, I stated flatly. Matthew's smile didn't reach his eyes. I prefer to think of it as right-sizing your role to current business needs. Many companies would simply eliminate the position entirely. And what about Paystream? Who will manage the ongoing development and maintenance? Yes, we're evaluating alternative solutions. Evan has been tasked with conducting a full audit of the current system and identifying potential replacement vendors. The Stone River contract is quite expensive for what amounts to a basic payroll system. I nodded slowly, careful to keep my expression neutral despite the rage building inside me. Matthew had no idea what he was talking about. Paystream was far from basic. It was a sophisticated platform that had been customized over years to handle Veltrix's complex needs. Replacing it would be a nightmare. More importantly, he had no idea he was talking to the owner of Stone River about canceling her contract. When would these changes take effect? I asked. We'll begin the transition immediately. Your new role and compensation will be official starting next pay period. I'll need you to work with Evan to document all aspects of the current system by the end of the month. I stood up, tucking the paper into my folder. I'll need some time to consider this proposal. Matthew's expression hardened slightly. Of course. But I should be clear, this isn't really a proposal. The decision has been made at the executive level. I'm merely informing you as a courtesy. I left his office without another word, my mind already calculating my next moves. In the elevator down to my floor, I sent a text to Deborah Vaughn, my attorney who had helped set up Stone River. Need to talk ASAP. Veltrix planning to terminate contract early. Over the weekend, I meticulously reviewed the Stone River contract with Deborah. The terms were clear. If Veltrix terminated early, they would owe a $1 million, $5 million penalty and would have 7 days to transfer all payroll data off the system. However, the contract also specified that any attempt to reverse engineer, copy, or extract the system's code would constitute intellectual property theft. They're painting themselves into a corner, Deborah observed. There's no way they can migrate all that data and set up a new system in 7 days. And from what you've told me, this COO doesn't even realize the complexity involved. He thinks it's just a basic payroll system, I confirmed. He has no idea it handles everything from commission calculations to benefit allocations to tax withholding across 3 countries. Deborah tapped her pen against her legal pad. What's your goal here, Sam? Do you want to fight to keep your position? Or are you ready to walk away? I considered the question carefully. Veltrix had been my professional home for 8 years. I'd grown with the company, contributed to its success in countless ways. But Matthew Lane represented a new direction, one that devalued experience, loyalty, and deep technical knowledge in favor of cost-cutting and superficial metrics. I want them to understand the true value of what they're throwing away. I finally answered. Both my contribution and the system I built, and I want to make sure I'm compensated fairly for both. When I returned to work on Monday, I discovered my access to several administrative systems had been restricted. My team members reported that they'd been called into individual meetings where they were told to document all their processes for knowledge transfer purposes. The writing on the wall couldn't have been clearer. I maintained a facade of cooperation, providing Evan with surface-level documentation about Paystream while carefully avoiding any details that would help him understand its inner workings. He was clearly out of his depth, asking questions that revealed his limited technical knowledge. So this Paystream thing, it's just an interface that sits on top of some other system, right? he asked during one of our handover sessions. No, I replied patiently. Paystream is a comprehensive platform that integrates multiple functions, including payroll, processing, tax calculation, benefit management, and performance-based compensation. It was custom-built for Veltrix's specific needs. Evan made a note on his iPad. And how hard would it be to migrate to something like ADP or Workday? You'd need to rebuild all the custom integrations and workflows. Plus, you'd lose the specific features designed for Veltrix's unique commission structures and international tax requirements. It would take months, possibly a year, to replicate the current functionality. He frowned. That doesn't align with our timeline. Matthew wants to have a new solution identified within 3 weeks and implemented within 2 months. I suppressed a smile. That's ambitious. Meanwhile, I was executing my own plan. First, I documented every interaction with Matthew and Evan, recording our meetings, legal in Texas with one-party consent, and saving every email. Second, I began preparing Stone River for the coming conflict. I updated all the legal documentation, reviewed the technical safeguards built into Paystream, and prepared communications that would be sent to Veltrix in various scenarios. The situation deteriorated quickly. By the 3rd week after my meeting with Matthew, I was moved from my office to a desk in the corner of the open plan area. My team members were reassigned to other departments, and I was introduced as a technical consultant in meetings I'd previously led. It was a transparent attempt to isolate and demoralize me. Then came the announcement I'd been expecting. Veltrix would be transitioning to a new payroll provider over the next 2 months. Matthew didn't even bother to inform me directly. I learned about it in the company-wide newsletter, where it was framed as an exciting upgrade to industry-leading technology. The following day, I received the official email confirming my role adjustment and salary reduction. Effective with the next pay cycle, the email was sent through the company's HR notification system, a module of Paystream that I had designed and that still recognized my administrator credentials. That night, I sat in my home office, staring at my computer screen. On it was a simple interface with a button labeled Initiate License Verification Protocol. This was a feature I'd built into Paystream but never activated, a digital failsafe that would verify the system's license status and shut down non-essential functions if it detected a breach of the terms of service. I thought about the people at Veltrix, the friends I'd made, the colleagues who respected my work, the new hires who had nothing to do with Matthew's decisions. Pushing this button would cause disruption for everyone, not just the executives who had decided to devalue my contribution, but I also thought about the principle at stake, about how Matthew Lane represented a type of leadership that saw people as replaceable resources, rather than valuable contributors with unique knowledge and skills. About how companies like Veltrix often learned the hard way that institutional knowledge and specialized expertise couldn't simply be documented and handed off to the lowest bidder. I clicked the button. The verification protocol would run overnight, checking against the Stone River contract database. By morning, Paystream would enter restricted mode, processing only the most critical functions while displaying a clear message. License. Verification failed. System access limited. Please contact Stone River Solutions to resolve this issue. I slept surprisingly well that night. The next morning, my phone began ringing at 6:43 a.m. The first call was from Diane in HR, then Frank in finance, then Evan, and finally Matthew himself. I let them all go to voicemail as I calmly got ready for work, taking extra time with my coffee and choosing my outfit carefully. A crisp, navy blazer over a white blouse, my most professional look. When I arrived at the office at my usual time of 8:30, the atmosphere was one of barely controlled chaos. People were huddled in groups, speaking in urgent whispers. Diane from HR practically sprinted across the floor when she saw me. "Sam, thank God you're here. The payroll system is down. We can't access any employee records. And finance can't run the payment batch for tomorrow's direct deposits. Matthew has called an emergency meeting in the main conference room." I nodded calmly. "I received several messages. I'll head to the meeting now." The conference room was packed when I arrived. Matthew stood at the head of the table, his face flushed with anger. Beside him, Evan looked pale and overwhelmed. Representatives from finance, HR, and IT filled the remaining seats, all wearing expressions ranging from concern to panic. "Ah, Samantha, so good of you to join us," Matthew said with barely concealed sarcasm. "Perhaps you can explain why our entire payroll system has suddenly locked everyone out on the day." Before payday, all eyes turned to me as I took the last empty seat. "I received an automated alert this morning as well," I said evenly. "It appears the system has detected a license verification issue with Stone River." "And what exactly does that mean?" Matthew demanded. "It means the system has identified a potential breach of the contract terms between Veltrix and Stone River Solutions. In such cases, it automatically enters a restricted mode to protect both parties until the issue is resolved." Matthew's eyes narrowed. "And how do we resolve it? We have 500 employees expecting their paychecks tomorrow." "You would need to contact Stone River directly," I replied. "As the license holder, they're the only ones who can reset the verification system." "Then get them on the phone now," Matthew ordered. "I don't have direct contact information for their executives," I said, which was technically true. "The support information should be in the contract documentation." Evan spoke up, his voice strained. "We've tried the support email from the contract. We got an automated response saying a representative would contact us within 24 hours. 24 hours? Matthew exploded. "That's unacceptable. Evan, find a phone number for these people. Someone must know how to reach them directly." "I've already tried searching," Evan admitted. "Stone River Solutions has a very minimal online presence. There's a website, but it only has the same contact email we already used." Matthew turned to our IT director. "James, can you bypass this verification thing? Get us back into the system?" James, a veteran IT professional who had always respected my work, shook his head. "We've examined the lockout. It's enforced at multiple levels of the application. Attempting to bypass it would violate the terms of service and could result in complete data loss, according to the warning messages." "This is ridiculous," Matthew fumed. "We're being held hostage by a software vendor. Who approved this contract?" The room fell silent. Everyone knew Richard had overseen the Stone River contract, but he was long gone, enjoying his retirement in Portugal. The contract was reviewed and approved by the previous CIO and the legal team, I offered. "I believe there are specific provisions regarding license verification and compliance." Matthew glared at me. "And as our systems optimization expert, you never thought to mention the risks of this arrangement, never considered that we might be putting the entire company's payroll at the mercy of some obscure third-party vendor?" I met his gaze steadily. "I believe I've documented the critical nature of the paystream system in numerous reports over the years, including the transition document I prepared for you when you joined Veltrix, which outlined all major systems and their strategic importance, a document Matthew had clearly never bothered to read. "This isn't productive," said James. "We need solutions. What are our options to get payroll processed for tomorrow?" For the next hour, the team discussed alternatives: emergency paper checks, impossible to prepare in time; delaying payroll, legally problematic; using a temporary service, couldn't access our data to know who to pay what. Throughout the discussion, I remained quiet, offering information when asked, but otherwise observing as the reality of the situation slowly dawned on everyone in the room. Veltrix had become completely dependent on Paystream, and no quick fix would replace it. Finally, Matthew made a decision. "We'll call an emergency board meeting this afternoon. In the meantime, draft a communication to all employees, explaining there will be a short delay in payroll processing due to a technical issue. James, keep working on technical solutions. Samantha, go through all documentation related to Stone River and find us leverage." As the meeting dispersed, Matthew pulled me aside, his voice low and threatening. "If I find out you had anything to do with this convenient system failure, immediately after we announce changes to your role, there will be serious consequences." I looked at him with genuine confusion. How could I possibly cause a license verification issue with a third-party system? Before he could respond, his assistant appeared to inform him that the board members were being contacted for an emergency session at 3 p.m. Matthew gave me one last suspicious look before hurrying away. Back at my desk, I called Deborah. It's happening, I told her. The system went into verification mode this morning. Any direct accusations? She asked. Nothing they can prove. Matthew is suspicious, but he has no evidence linking me to Stone River. Good. Are you ready for the next phase? I took a deep breath. Yes. Can you be at the Veltrix office at 2:45 today? The board is meeting at 3. I'll be there, Deborah assured me. And Sam, you've done nothing wrong. Remember that? I spent the next few hours appearing to search diligently through documentation while actually preparing my presentation for the board. At 2:30, I changed into the spare outfit I kept in my office, a formal charcoal suit that I rarely wore, but that projected authority and seriousness. Deborah arrived precisely at 2:45, looking every inch the high-powered attorney in her tailored pantsuit and carrying a sleek leather portfolio. We waited in the reception area until the board members had all arrived and were settled in the executive conference room. At 3:10, my phone buzzed with a text from James. Matthew telling board it's a vendor extortion attempt, suggesting legal action against Stone River. Thought you should know. I showed the message to Deborah, who nodded grimly. Perfect timing. Let's go. We walked unannounced into the board meeting, causing Matthew to stop mid-sentence. His eyes widened first in surprise, then in anger. Excuse me, this is a private board meeting. You weren't invited, Samantha, and I don't know who this is. I stepped forward confidently. Board members, I apologize for the interruption, but I have critical information regarding the paystream situation that you need to hear. Immediately. This is Deborah Vaughn, my attorney. The board chair, Eleanor Walsh, who had always been fair in my limited interactions with her, studied me thoughtfully. Given the urgency of our payroll situation, I think we should hear what Ms. Ford has to say. Please, continue. Matthew started to object, but Eleanor silenced him with a raised hand. I connected my laptop to the room's projection system. What I'm about to share will explain the current situation with Paystream and offer a path forward. My first slide displayed the incorporation documents for Stone River Solutions, with my name clearly listed as the owner and CEO. A murmur ran through the room as the implication became clear. I am Stone River Solutions, I stated simply. I designed, built, and own Paystream, the system that has been processing Veltrix's payroll and managing employee data for the past 5 years. Matthew's face drained of color. This is a conflict of interest. It's fraud. Deborah stepped forward. Actually, Mr. Lane, there is no fraud here. Veltrix entered into a legitimate contract with Stone River Solutions with full knowledge that Ms. Ford would be the technical liaison. The arrangement was approved by the previous CIO and reviewed by Veltrix's legal team. I continued through my presentation, explaining how I had developed Paystream on my own time, how Richard had supported the creation of Stone River as a way to save the company money while retaining the custom system, and how the arrangement had benefited both parties for years. The system verification protocol was triggered automatically when it detected potential contract violations, I explained, carefully avoiding mentioning that I had manually initiated the process. Specifically, the plans to terminate the contract early and migrate to a new system without proper notice. As outlined in Section 23 of our agreement, I displayed the relevant contract language on screen. Eleanor looked troubled. Mr. Lane, were you aware of these contract provisions when you initiated the search for a new payroll provider? Matthew shifted uncomfortably. I was informed we had a standard service agreement that could be terminated with 30 days' notice. Clearly, someone failed to properly brief me on the unique nature of this arrangement. And were you aware, I continued, that the contract specifically prohibits any attempt to reverse engineer or extract code from the EOO system? The activities that Mr. Parker has been engaged in for the past 3 weeks could be construed as intellectual property theft. The board members exchanged concerned glances as Matthew's face flushed red. This is absurd, he sputtered. You've deliberately concealed your ownership to manipulate the company. And now you're holding our payroll hostage. I've concealed nothing, I replied calmly. My connection to Stone River is documented in the contract appendix and was known to the previous management team. As for the payroll system, it's simply enforcing the contract terms that Veltrix agreed to. I moved to my final slide. I have a proposal that will resolve the immediate issue and provide a path forward. Over the next 20 minutes, I outlined a comprehensive solution. Stone River would immediately restore full system functionality, allowing tomorrow's payroll to process normally. In return, Veltrix would honor the existing contract through its natural conclusion in 6 months. During that time, we would negotiate a new, transparent long-term agreement that would benefit both parties. Additionally, I proposed a reorganization of the systems optimization department that would actually generate cost savings while preserving the specialized knowledge needed to maintain Veltrix's critical infrastructure. When I finished, Eleanor asked Deborah and me to step outside while the board discussed the proposal. In the hallway, Deborah squeezed my arm encouragingly. You were fantastic in there, clear, professional, and solution-oriented. They'd be fools not to accept your proposal. What if they don't? I asked, suddenly worried. What if they decide to fight this legally? Then they lose access to their payroll system for months while the case works through the courts, face potential penalties for contract violation, and still have to build a new system from scratch. Deborah replied confidently, Trust me, they'll accept. After 45 tense minutes, we were called back into the boardroom. Only Eleanor and 2 other board members remained. Matthew was notably absent. Ms. Ford, we've reviewed your proposal and agreed to your terms in principle. Eleanor began. Our legal team will work with Ms. Vaughn on the formal documentation. In the meantime, we request that full system functionality be restored immediately. Of course, I nodded, opening my laptop. I can initiate the reset protocol right now. It will take approximately 30 minutes for all functions to be restored. As I typed the commands to restore PayStream, Eleanor continued. We also want to express our concern about how this situation developed. There appears to have been a significant breakdown in communication and due diligence. The board has decided to place Mr. Lane on administrative leave pending a full review of his management decision since joining Veltrix. I kept my expression neutral, though inwardly I felt a surge of vindication. I understand. I'm committed to ensuring a smooth continuation of operations during this transition period. We're counting on that, Eleanor said, her tone softening slightly. Your knowledge of our systems is clearly invaluable, even more so than we realized. We hope you'll continue to be an integral part of Veltrix's future. After confirming that PayStream was returning to normal operation, Deborah and I left the boardroom. In the elevator down to my floor, I finally allowed myself a small smile. Congratulations, Deborah said quietly. You stood your ground and protected what you built. The next few weeks were intense but productive. With Matthew gone, the atmosphere at Veltrix noticeably improved. An interim COO was appointed from within, Gabriela Rodriguez, who had been with the company almost as long as I had and who understood its culture and values. Under Gabriela's leadership, the aggressive cost-cutting measures were reevaluated. Some were retained where they made sense, but others were reversed, particularly those that had impacted employee morale. My team was reassembled, though with a more focused mission and clearer metrics to demonstrate our value. The negotiations for the new Stone River contract proceeded smoothly. I was transparent about my ownership and worked with Veltrix's legal team to create an agreement that protected both parties' interests. The new contract included provisions for knowledge sharing, system documentation, and contingency planning, all designed to ensure that Veltrix wouldn't be vulnerable if I decided to leave someday. 3 months after the confrontation in the boardroom, Gabriela was confirmed as the permanent COO. One of her first official acts was to invite me to join the executive leadership team as Chief Technology Officer, a role that had been vacant since Richard's retirement. We need someone who truly understands our technical infrastructure at the highest level of decision-making, she explained, and someone who isn't afraid to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. I accepted the position, with the condition that I would transfer ownership of Stone River to a blind trust to avoid any perceived conflict of interest. The arrangement ensured that Paystream would continue to serve Veltrix's needs while preserving the value I had created. In my new role, I implemented several changes to prevent another situation like the one with Matthew. I established anonymous feedback channels where employees could report concerns about management decisions. I created detailed documentation of all critical systems and contracts, accessible to the entire executive team. And I initiated a quarterly review process for all vendor relationships to ensure that institutional knowledge wasn't lost during leadership transitions. As for Matthew Lane, I heard through industry contacts that he had landed at another tech company in Seattle. I wished him well, hoping he had learned something from his experience at Veltrix. Some lessons come at a high price, but they're worth it if they lead to growth. Looking back, I don't regret the risks I took in standing up to Matthew or in creating Stone River in the first place. In the tech world, knowledge and innovation are our most valuable assets. Sometimes you have to take extraordinary measures to protect what you've built and to ensure your true value is recognized. The most dangerous person in the corporate world isn't the loudest or even the most powerful. It's the one who underestimates the quiet person who built the systems everyone depends on. Matthew learned that lesson the hard way. I just hope others won't have to.